Welcome to the 1:15 p.m. NEACT concurrent session here, using project-based learning to engage students in remote learning environments. Our presenter today is Elizabeth Stewart-Miranda from Greater Lowell Technical High School in Lowell, Mass. Liz has an BA in anthropology from Tufts University and an MS ABD in archaeology from the University of New Mexico. She's Go Miners? No, that's the other one. All right.
Lobos.
Oh, Lobos.
Or
okay.
wolves. Or wolf, I guess.
She spent 5 years working as a student archaeologist before switching to work as an adjunct professor of sociocultural anthropology at several local community colleges. In 2009, she became a full-time high school instructor, spending 10 years at Greater Lowell Technical School as a chemistry, biology, and whatever else was needed teacher before changing to Greater Lowell Technical School in January 2019, where she now works teaching biology and chemistry. Thank you so much, Liz, for presenting today.
Thank you for having me. So I was going to talk about project-based learning today, and the original plan was that I am the instructor of a virtual science summer camp at my school, which we offer to the kids in place of giving them any summer assignments, and it was optional. And when we first surveyed the students, we had 65 interested students, so we anticipated that maybe 15 of them would actually enroll and stay in the camp. Turns out the actual real answer was about 5. So originally I was supposed to be coming from a place of having done a bunch of the project-based learning work and having a data sample to share with you. But now it turns out I'm just going to share with you everything that I developed for that camp, and I'll talk about the 2 campers who actually actively participated of those 5. With that said, I originally came up with this idea with a friend of mine who is the AP environmental teacher, and our school traditionally has done a really large science fair every year, which is probably not going to happen this year. So they are going to probably utilize all these materials in place of the science fair, with the idea that if the kids are then remote again in the spring, which is when we usually do our science fair, that they would probably share their projects either in a large classroom Google Meet, or they might even either screencast themselves or Flipgrid themselves, sharing their projects with themselves, or with their classes rather. So that's kind of the perspective I'm coming from. And again, I'm coming from a place of little data, but at least I have materials to share with you. I hope that's okay. I am gonna share my screen so I can go through that stuff with you. Where did it go? It's right there, okay. So what to do here? And I was just sharing that with you guys. Let me switch. Ooh, I have to move that. Okay, that messed me up. Let me move that again. I'm sure you can see me guys moving everything. It's a little different than Google. It's kind of fascinating. All right, I'll move you guys here. Yeah. Okay. So it was using project-based learning to engage students in a remote learning environment. And again, it looks like we're going to move forward and do that. Oh, cool. Okay, I'm going to with that. Okay. Okay. So that's me, and you've got that background information that I'm from Greater Lowell. If you do need me, that's my email address. I don't do social media for work anymore, but I am available on social media privately. So the agenda for today is I'm going to go over what our PBL proposal was to the school and how we approached it, and then how I actually set up different materials for that approach, and then I was hoping we'll have time at the end for a Q&A, but we'll see how that goes. So our proposal, and again, this is a little, there we go. We wanted the students to actually go through the different engineering practices that are in the MA framework or the NGSS. So students were to develop and use models in their projects, analyze and assess data in their projects, construct explanations, design solutions, or engage in arguments for evidence in their projects, and provide peer-to-peer feedback. The students that did participate this summer were able to do the top 3 bullet points, but they were unable to do the 4th one because there were just not enough participants. But again, I'll talk about how how we were supposed to approach that. This is actually taken from a publication that came out this past month. Sorry, the NEA publication, and said, if implemented strategically, Incorporating projects in your classroom curriculum can provide opportunities for students to practice skills that are missing in the instruction of traditional classrooms. And that's actually why we offered that this summer. The idea is we were trying to bridge a gap in learning that the kids would have experienced because of the COVID closing. And we felt that if the kids did project-based learning, they could choose what they wanted to learn and how they wanted to learn it, but they'd probably be working on those science inquiry skills that they probably didn't get because we were told by the state to do all review work. And when the state told us to stop doing review work and gave us those power standards, the power standards were usually things we either already covered or weren't practical to cover or were insensitive to cover. One of them being COVID itself. They wanted us to cover, at least in biology, it wanted us to cover the evolution of viruses as a power standard, which at our school, given that a lot of our students were experiencing family illness and family death, we thought was insensitive to teach. So we've chosen not to do that one. We might do it this coming year to help the kids process what's been happening. So we did this by following the Buck Institute for Education's model, which is under the PBL Works website, and this is taken from there. I didn't end up making this particular animation, but the idea is that the students think about how are they going to do this, and in this case it would be by choosing some kind of project that interests them. Why are we doing this? Again, in their case it would be because it's something that interests them, so they chose or they will choose their own projects. And then even the product we said should be a public service announcement, but we didn't specify how they should give that. Instead, we gave them a bunch of options and then they could ask us to provide different options. So my student who has so far completed this decided to do it as a PSA pamphlet about a medication she decided to study. Other students can make commercials, they can make posters, and we would go over that. But this was the whole process of how to do it. That they choose a challenging problem or question, that because it's something that interests them, they have inquiry and in investigating it, but they're also interested. It's authentic because it's their real research, it's their voice. They're supposed to reflect on their own. We're supposed to help them reflect, and also in theory, in Google Meets or even Google Hangouts, just by texting with each other, they should have peer-to-peer feedback to help with reflection. And then the reflection would help with critiques and revision, as well as, of course, teacher feedback. And then they'd make a product that was capable for the public to receive. Again, in this case, the student that finished that made a pamphlet, but it could be anything. Am I going too fast, by the way? Are we okay? All right, I see a couple of faces, so. All right, so how did we do that? I did direct asynchronous instruction with interactive presentations. I'll show those to you in a little bit. We provided structured student inquiry-based supports with Google Docs and choice boards. I attempted frequent check-ins with Google Meets. No kids showed up. Like I'm supposed to do one today at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We'll see if any of the kids show up. Google Hangout seems to be more popular because the kids like to text, but they do not like to actually talk to you. So I would text with the kids through Hangouts. And also email. Email ended up being super popular. They liked the back and forth of email. And then we did formative progress and SEL checks with Google Forms. So for the asynchronous instruction, I use Pear Deck and I use Edpuzzle. Pear Deck is an app that plugs into your Google slideshow. So if you have already existing slideshows, you can actually just add it, or you can create your own using it. It turns them into an interactive slideshow. So I thought we could play with one for a few minutes just so you could see it. I'll go into that in a minute. The other thing I also use was Edpuzzle. Edpuzzle lets you take YouTube videos and turn it into an interactive experience as well. And I actually embedded my Edpuzzles in my Pear Decks. So that's why I thought we could go to that now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch Pear Decks. You can see it. And this, I think I linked my intro to the summer class. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my add-ons and I'm going to open it. And then I'm going to start it, and you guys can actually log on. You can do it on your computers or you can do it on your cell phone. I liked doing it on my cell phone so I could watch the teacher version. Let's do instructor piece. There's 2 versions. I had it go asynchronous, which was the student version, so I can just load it on to Google Classroom, and the kids did it as they did it. All right, so if you guys are willing, if you guys could on either your computer or on your cell phone, go to joinpd.com, and then this is your join code. QNWRM, or Quick Ninjas Wish Red Muffins. Let's see how many people are here. Quick. How many people do we have in our session? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
17.
Okay, thank you. I'm mostly doing this just so you can see how I introduce it to the students, and also introduce the idea of PBL, because this is the only time I tell them what a PBL is. The rest of the time, all of the pair decks were used to teach them about analyzing data. We looked at what is good and bad data, how to make data, and what kind of data is best for certain bits of information. Oh, I can't see the chat. Okay. Okay. Is everyone okay if I just start? I know we're not all in.
Maybe we can just write the code in the chat so you can still get in.
I think it'll also stay on the screen.
Oh yeah.
It should show up in the upper right-hand corner. The website again is just join PD for peardeck.com.
That's what I did for my class for the kids who came late. Just put it in the chat box and was like, okay, join.
Yeah. Plus, I don't know that my screen may very well have a delay. So I'm going to start. Okay, so I now have control of the slideshow entirely. I'm the one controlling it. If I went to the student view version, they would be controlling it. And this is still open. All right, so I'm gonna go to the next slide, and your screen should change. And so I had the students, brainstorm briefly on what do they think PBL was. And we can actually show responses as they happen. So if anybody were typing in here or writing in here, we could actually share this with the students. You can see, yeah, I see someone's writing on the screen, which is great. So this is one student's screen. Here's another student's screen. And the beauty of this is, since this is the classroom view, you'll note that no one's names are here. When I'm done checking this out, I could go to their website and I can actually view what each student is actually writing. But I wouldn't want to share that with my students. I want them to have their anonymity. So this is what they would do in the spring. All right, we're going to move on to the next one. So then I gave them a video to watch about PBL and learning together, and it should be popping up on your devices as something you can watch. It's just a YouTube video. I'm going to skip ahead anyway. But again, notice it's an interactive thing. So previous slide, they could write on it. This slide, they're watching something. The next slide now asks them about it, and then the students can, again, write on here, and we can see their feedback. So if you had pretended that you had watched the video, and we, yeah, and we see somebody said, I learned stuff and things. This, yeah. And it's good to see you guys playing with it too. Right, because I let you guys watch the video, which is awesome. Okay, I'm gonna scroll up. I'm gonna go to the next one. And then I did an SEL check in the middle of it, which I can let you do now because I'm rushing. All right, we got most of your responses. Let's see. Oh, good. Yeah, I'm going a little fast. I'm rushing. Normally, like I would have, if I were the actual teacher, I would have probably given the time to watch the video. And then I would have given real time to actually answer the questions. You know, with students, I would probably aim for 3 to 5 minutes if I were doing this live. And if I'm there to help them with any tech issues. Obviously, if they're at home and they're doing this asynchronously, they can spend whatever amount of time they need, and they can rewatch the video because they can go back into the slideshow as often as they need to, which I thought was a benefit to this. There's also a notes page that gets generated that I could send out to the kids. I would probably send it out after the fact so that the kids have it with their own answers already written there. And then here, oh yes, go ahead, I'm sorry.
So when you said joinpd.com and we joined, do you know who we are?
If I go to the Pear Deck screen, I can see. So let me see. Sorry, so many things pop up here. Now, my school actually subscribed to this, so I don't know how much this costs, and I don't know what the free version is like. If I logged in, so if I go up here to where it says sessions, this is the session that's happening right now. And then this is where the teacher view is. So that's the classroom view. This is my teacher dashboard. Hold on, which is taking a while to load. In the teacher dashboard, I can see your names and I can see who's logged in.
Thank you.
So yeah, I'm gonna log out of that. Reduce my tabs. Oh no, I'm clicking on the wrong things because Zoom is stuff everywhere. Sorry. Okay, the only thing I wanted to do is I just wanted to rush ahead to the Ed puzzle just to show you where it was and to show you what it is, just in case you haven't used it before. Hitting the wrong buttons. Oh yeah, this was another check. This is a temperature check on the content though. This is another drag and drop, so the kids would just do that, and that is assuming they read the article, which I didn't let you read, and that they watched the video that I didn't let you watch. All right, so, oh, I guess my Ed puzzle wasn't in here, I'm sorry. And this is a brainstorming set. I thought I had an Ed puzzle in here. I think I must have only had it in the data. All right, well, I'm gonna go back to my original presentation. Is that okay? So this was just a way to show interactive slideshows. And there's lots of different types of technology that does this. I have not played with Nearpod, but my understanding is Nearpod and Pear Deck are very similar. And a lot of high schools seem to like Nearpod. I liked Pear Deck because it had these young images, which I think would make it more warm and cozy for students who are probably feeling a little isolated at home. But again, that was a mixed bag of slides I made in their slides. So just to show you, like, I made this slide, I just added something to this. I also made this slide, which was their homework, but I added something to it. Whereas this one is one of their slides, and this one is one of their slides. I made this slide, but I actually copy and pasted their images into it to make it look like one of theirs. And my slides that I was playing with for a chemistry class were much more interesting looking. These were just because we were, sorry, wrong slideshow. You know, trying to do something that was so brand new, I didn't want to distract them too much with visuals. Okay, so before I move on, does anyone have any questions about what an Ed puzzle is? Let me see, I'll pop up. I can't see anything, I'm sorry. I guess no. Any questions about Pear Deck, which I have rushed through? Okay. So that was how we did the, oh, let me hide you guys. Yes, ma'am.
I do have one question about how did you get the kids to control their own Pear Deck? I know how to do it from the teacher's view, but how do the students control it themselves?
So if I were to end the one we were in, I'm so sorry, the Zoom thing keeps conflicting with me, and I start a new lesson. When I was doing with you guys, I chose instructor paste. Instead, I would do student paste. And then when you do that, it offers a different set of options for where you share it. Like you can share the link directly with the students, or you could post in Google Classroom. So because I am a Google school, I post it in Classroom for my students. And I just
Thank
leave
you.
that running. Yeah, you just leave it running until the assignment's done. So like I'm gonna actually leave that running until August 15th because that's when camp is supposed to end. Okay, so that was the asynchronous instruction. And again, not only was it introducing what a PBL was, I had one on good versus bad data. I had one on how to interpret data, and I had one on which types of graphs to make for your data. So the kids had 4 in total to look at. Then we also offered a bunch of support documents. So they had a project choice worksheet to work on where they used a bunch of different resources to research different project ideas. One of my colleagues liked using sciencebuddies.com. I also found that thoughtco.com had some stuff. So we said to the students, you know, if you already have an idea, then why don't you just research these concepts of what resource would you get the info from, what's your topic, how much time do you think you need, etc. If you don't have any ideas, then I said go to Science Buddies, and they had a little survey, and that helps the kids narrow down ideas for themselves based on their interests. And it's a pretty cool survey, actually. Or they could go to ThoughtCo, which already had ideas there. And then I asked the students to send me 1 or 2 ideas that they were interested in, and then I would give them some feedback and guidance on that. So that student actually did that, which was great. We did it through email. Once they were done with that, then this was their choice board for how they would make it. So it's what will you make? So are you going to do a handmade product or digital project? Are you going to do a video? Or are you going to do a computer product? And the goal was to make a tic-tac-toe board. You'll notice that all of the options here are analyze your data using graphs, tables, and or charts. So the kids had to do that. And then based off of how they wanted to make their project would determine the rest of their tic-tac-toe. So were they designing and evaluating a real-world solution? Were they presenting an argument or a counter-argument? Or were they explaining a naturally occurring phenomenon? And the reality is all 3 of these are pretty similar as well. It was more about like how they did the technology. And again, all of these things are, for the most part, taken actually from the Massachusetts framework. We just changed the language to be a little more kid-friendly. In fact, when I first made it, I did it with the MA framework language, and I looked at it and I went, oh, this is a mess. So I changed it up. But all of these are considered modeling when I looked at the examples that they had on the DESE website. Another set of aids that we had for asynchronous work were essentially project outlines, and both of them were very similar. So I just had the kids choose which one they liked better based off of what kind of project they were doing. So they could either do this one, which was a project-based learning roadmap. So it's what's your problem, what materials do you need, how do you think you'll solve the problem or argue about the problem, and what skills do you think you need to acquire in order to do that. The other one for students who were more interested in the provide an argument or counter argument type of project, which means it's probably more like a research paper type of project, had this one to look at, which is a professional paper outline, but set to kid limits. So it's, you know, you should write an abstract, and what is an abstract? You should write an introduction, and what is really an introduction? And that's something I provided for the kids as well. The student who did do this, I found that she chose this one, and that's kind of what she went with, even though she actually still ended up kind of doing a research project, because she ended up researching Paxil, and she wanted to look at what kind of audience Paxil works better for, and how does it really affect teenagers. For the check-ins, again, I was supposed to be doing bi-weekly Google Meets, which I still show up to, but the students have not been going to. But that was designed for, and for the fall or spring will be used for large or small group meetings, or one-on-one pre-scheduled meetings, and it would also provide conversations. It's a means to get large-scale peer-to-peer feedback. I also think the students should utilize Jamboard for feedback as a way to kind of brainstorm ideas, or just a place to jot it all down, since it's sort of like use sticky notes to give information back. And then I already talked about how we also use Google Hangouts. That's for texting with students or impromptu video chats where a kid says, well, can I just talk to you now? And you're already chatting with them. And it's really great for just one-to-one feedback. And again, Google Meets and Google Hangouts are really pretty they're pretty well integrated now. So it's good you're easily able to switch back and forth between the two. So that was for the check-ins. And then for the formative assessment and SEL check-ins, I actually gave the kids a Google form, and they were supposed to fill it out any day that they weren't giving me a product. So if I wasn't getting an email for a kid where they were checking in with me, or I wasn't getting one of those forms filled in some way, shape, or form, or even a project, they were to fill this in. And it was really handy because the last question says, did today's work make you want to have a one-on-one Google Meet? And then I would email the student and I'd say, okay, when do you want to meet? And then, you know, we would end up chatting through email anyway. But the idea is that would work. I used a really similar form during the spring remote learning, and it was fantastic. I had kids who I did have scheduled one-on-one Google Meets with to help them out with their work, or maybe they were just upset that day because their parent was sick and they wanted to talk to a teacher to talk. So my co-teacher and I, because I work in a special ed classroom, would use this to figure out when the kids wanted to talk, because the kids weren't always good about emailing us, but they were good about filling these out. And you'll note it's short. And I didn't ask for a lot either. These are, you know, things to click in. And any kid who scored a 3 or more, they got an email from me to check in on them to make sure they were okay, even though 3 is neutral. And it didn't matter if it says you want to talk about it or not. I just used that to get a sense of what the urgency was. And then for the what did you work on today, you know, we would ask the kids to give something short, something achievable, so 2 to 4 sentences. Most kids, of course, aimed for 2. And for what did you learn today, 1 to 2 sentences. Again, something easy and achievable, because at least in the springtime, the kids didn't have a lot of time to work. We had a lot of working students, so there's a lot of adjusting the schedule. But again, I also used this summer. And then how it went. So I already talked about this, that fewer students than predicted signed up for the camp. Of those that did and participated, they utilized the support Pear Decks for information about how to do research and interpret data. They utilized email-based communications. They engaged in the check-in survey. And they used support documents to structure a PSA on their topic, which was great. And it was really good to see that. Oh, I'm so sorry. Let me get rid of whoever's trying to call me. Okay, sorry, that was a telemarketer. That was wonderful timing. And that's all I had on that topic. Does anybody need me to go back to a slide before I stop sharing?
Liz, thank you so much for that presentation. It was really awesome, and I really appreciated how you went into Pear Deck and Edpuzzle. And I know that some people in here have used those tools before and some haven't. So there might be questions about those tools. And then there's like the whole other set of question about the project-based learning, and it's really awesome how it looks. How I really liked your rubric, for instance, how you set it up really nicely and use kid-friendly language. If anybody has any questions on Edpuzzle or Pear Deck, maybe we could leave those like for closer to the end and focus on the project-based learning aspect of this at the beginning.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I couldn't see the chat while I was talking. Like I tried to open it and it wouldn't let me. So I'm sorry if I missed stuff that would have been more timely. Okay, so what can I help you guys with in regards to the project-based learning?
What's the timeline for one project?
My understanding from the teachers who do science fair is that they would be aiming for about a quarter to a quarter and a half, because we're in quarters. For the summer, we gave them 15 days with the idea that they would be working between 1 to 2 hours per day. But the reality was that was an ideal timeline. I wasn't actually allowed to put a end date on anything once the kids started, because a lot of our students, again, work because I'm at a Voc. So again, the student who was actually participating, I know she works full time at a McDonald's. She told me she worked. I said, oh, where do you work? Maybe I could drop by and say hi. So, and she actually did it faster than I was expecting. So we're in that back and forth phase right now, where I gave her feedback and I said, oh, this looks really good. I like this. Could you add a little here? So yeah, but ideally it would be a quarter and a half, and the students would have a few days here and there where they really do work on it in class or in place of class time. And then at other times it would be more of an anchoring activity for them to go back to if they finish their work earlier than expected.
Linda just mentioned that her biggest issue is coming up with rubrics and thinking of scenarios in advance, and grading can be very difficult. Do you have anything, any feedback on that?
I actually have not created a grading sheet yet because I was not allowed to give a grade on the summer-based stuff. So I'm giving them a certificate of completion, but I would probably grade it kind of more like a lab report where the stuff that you know the kids can just look up gets a lower grade, and that you would weight heavier on the parts that show creative thinking or analysis. I can make up a rubric, which I'm happy to share because I probably should anyway for the teachers who will be using it in the springtime. But that was also something I needed to discuss with them.
Right. And as a follow-up, what's your plan for giving feedback? Because written feedback or even like in-person feedback can be really time-consuming. So do you have a plan for that?
Yes, for digital projects, and I was already doing this, and I think the expectation is will be digital, is essentially Google allows you to have a place where you can keep comments stored. It's called Google Keep, and that's separate from any of the other apps. I was probably going to start, I would be typing in comments for feedback, and any comments that I find I'm using more than once, I was going to store and keep. Google Docs actually does allow you to create a comment bank, which then when you start typing in just a keyword, it pops up and you can click on it. I was using that like crazy this spring because we had the kids working a lot off of typable docs. So I found that was really easy, and it saves a lot of time. If you know there's certain things, like if one of your key feedback points is, I really like what you did here, but I think you need more data about XYZ, then you could bank the start of your statement and then just type in the specifics to that kid.
Mm-hmm. There were some other questions. How do you scaffold the student project selection process? That's
that actually was what that research page was. Kids who already have an idea in the back of their head, they're good, but you have those kids who are lost. So we were going to send them straight to sciencebuddies.com because then they would take the survey. And if you give the kids a limit like, hey, you've got 6 weeks on this, but you know in reality you're going to work on it for a week or two, find a project that's limited to 2 weeks. That substantially limits the scope of projects they would get back. And then that kid would hopefully only have, between 2 to 4 selections to choose from. And then they could use that. And then other documents we have in place to help them, like the research documents, they fill in as they go. And it helps them step by step through the project. Any kids who needs additional information, we could then create additional documents to create more scaffolding within those documents, like with how many lines to fill in, or maybe even sentence starters. Because you do have those kids who have trouble starting their ideas out, and that would be ways to adjust that.
Great. I also had a follow-up question from Mackenzie. So how would you specifically, what areas in the chemistry curriculum go well with this? And do you kind of constrain student topics and other kind of requirements with like trying to fit this in?
So the idea with project-based learning is you don't confine the kids at all. That if you want to say, oh, we're in chemistry, it has to be a chemistry topic, that would be the limiting factor. That's one of the reasons why the teachers would want to do it in the spring in place of science fair, because the idea is that in a science fair assignment, and kids are also open to do whatever they want. You could choose to limit the scope if you wanted to, but then it would no longer be considered project-based learning. Even though it seems like it's project-based learning, but it doesn't meet that definition by the Buck Institute. Like the topic we start with
Liz,
every year now in bio is ecology. So we could have the students pick any ecological topic they want. Am I back yet?
Yeah, your audio cut off there just for a sec.
Sorry. I was saying in bio, we spent almost all of term one on ecology. So we could decide to have the kids do a project instead of an assessment on ecology. Instead of like a quiz or a unit exam on ecology, and we could open it up to any single topic as long as it has an ecological theme to it. Again, the Buck Institute wouldn't consider that project-based learning, but it really is all the same implements to it. Yeah. In regards to chemistry, I think it would be really great if you hit one of the later frameworks with this. There's the one about modeling production in industry and streamlining that. I think that would be a great place because it's a good place to sum up all their learning.
Do you give specific ideas to them?
If I have a kid who's struggling, I might say, well, what's stuff that interests you? What do you do for a hobby? And then try to find a project that would meet their interests that they already have. Otherwise, I would redirect them probably to the websites to help them streamline it.
And Esther asked, how big do you allow your groups to be?
Usually if it's a project, I try to limit it to 2 or 3 kids because then it's very clear to see who's doing what job and what job roles they have. A lot of my students also prefer to work alone. But I think 2 to 3 is the max. When we've tried to do 4 for a project, it usually doesn't work out that well.
I could just say, like, I've dabbled with project-based learning a lot in my classroom, but I've never been able to build it up to like something that's bigger. And one of the challenges that I ran into last year when I tried to do kind of like something with my honors class, like when we finished measurement and we had all those introductory topics under their belt, I tried to do something about like recycling or, I'm like, try to do something about sustainability, recycling. A bunch of kids picked different topics. I gave them some suggestions, but they ripped into me in my end of year course evaluation. I had a bunch of kids who like said, that project was a waste of time. It had nothing to do with chemistry. And for the rest of the year, we were behind the others' classes and it stressed me out. And I'm like, really? This is the first time I ever had like something like that happen. So
Wow.
I don't know if you have any feedback on what happened to me.
I don't, unfortunately, because again, my first time trying to do this was this summer. I've done smaller scale projects that are kind of similar in structure, but they're more pinpointed. Like we're doing a topic and I'll say, pick anything on this topic. I used to do that with nuclear chemistry back when we still taught it. And the kids liked it, but what we did is they picked whatever topic they wanted. I would then help them find resources for it because the kids always struggle with that. And then we would do a Socratic seminar style conversation about it. And so they had 2 sets of grades. They had their project grade and then they had their seminar grade. And I think the seminar made them like the project in the end, And of course, the kids always did bombs, but then you had the kids who did other stuff that they didn't think about, which was kind of cool. So I'm kind of sad nuclear's gone from the chemistry curriculum.
And Stewart said, could you do current events like the explosion in Beirut?
Absolutely.
So I just want to, sorry, Liz. So in the grand scheme of the day, this same Zoom session is going to go at 2 o'clock to a guided discussion on best practices for hybrid learning classrooms. There's also another guided discussion section in one of the other Zoom sessions that starts at 2:15. Ooh, well, I'm off by like 15 minutes here. We have plenty of time. But there's another guided discussion for developing instructional materials for remote learning. And I know that people were asking for like breaks. So Liz, can we wrap up like 5 minutes early at like 2:10 or so?
Sure. I thought we were supposed to wrap up at 2 anyways. That's fine with me.
Okay, great. Yeah, me too, like in my head.
So are there additional questions about PBL or have we exhausted those? I'm behind in my chat.
I had a question about how you evaluate the project and how the kids evaluate themselves on the project. Like, how do you evaluate their evaluation of themselves?
You don't.
Okay.
They need to have freedom to do that without a worry about essentially being persecuted for it. So what you do instead is you allow them to have you probably have to assign groups in advance, like this group of kids evaluates this group of kids and vice versa. And they need to go into a group chat and they need to be able to talk to each other. And what you do is you evaluate that they're staying on task and that they're providing feedback. And essentially, if you want to give it a grade, it has to be an effort-based grade. So that the kids don't worry about, because you're going to have those kids who are going to be so worried about saying anything negative that they may not provide any negative feedback. What I would recommend is giving the kids a protocol to follow. The tuning protocol is a really easy one to follow, where you, it's called that because they fine tune everything. And I think, I forgot the name of the national organization that has it, but there's a PDF for it you can get. Essentially, all they do is you have one group present their ideas, and then the other group the members take turns providing feedback to the original group, and they give warm and cold feedback. So everybody has to give warm feedback first, then they give the cold feedback, and then the other group just takes it in, maybe takes notes on it. And then the other group can respond once everybody else is giving feedback to them. So it's pretty easy because there's just not too many rules in place and it's all verbal. And again, you can always provide the students with sentence starters to help them have that conversation.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Hi, Liz, do you have a list of projects that you did with your students? I just want to see the sample of projects or topics that you did.
I can provide a list of old projects, but again, for the summer session, we didn't get as many kids enrolled as we were hoping for. So right now, the only completed project that was turned in was a student analyzing analyzing Paxil and essentially doing the pros and cons of Paxil for a teenage user.
Okay.
Rowena, when I did mine, I was inspired by an idea that I got at a conference. The UN sustainability goals are like a really great way. Like they're just so broad that there's so many things that can fit into it. Just kind of like improving the world. Luckily, we deal with like our kids are idealists. Like they're not beaten down by the world yet, and they have ideas, and it really appeals to teenagers. To think about how can we actually improve the world around us, and frankly, they're better than adults at that.
Cool.
So,
is it UN sustainability goals?
Yeah, UN. Let me see, or the Sustainability and Development Goals. Let me look it up.
Okay.
Yeah, and then again, just for everyone, it's a science fair website, but it's Science Buddies, I think .com.org. Let me double check that before I send that out. Actually.
I just pasted it. So like no poverty, no hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation. Like they're literally like everything.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I just put it's sciencebuddies.org. It's extremely broad, and let me go grab the place you take the quiz from because it's actually interesting. Sorry about that. There we go. Oops, wrong document. Sorry, it takes me a while to grab stuff when I'm zooming. Slows my computer down. There we go. That website I just hooked up was the one where there's a survey in place. So if you take it, you can see it gives you a lot of project ideas based off of interest, and then you narrow it down based off of a filtering setup they have on the left side of the screen. I like it because it's designed for science fairs, but there's no reason why a science fair project can't be a project-based learning project. I was actually hoping more kids were going to do, well, A, I was hoping for more kids, and B, I was hoping they would actually do science. I was hoping they would make something to solve a problem.
Thank you so much. This is really helpful if we decide to do remote all the way.
Yeah, my bio team is thinking about doing it too, because we realize like it may be, now that MCAS is off the table, it might be a nicer way to let the kids focus on stuff that interests them and start to love science again, because I think they lose that when they start going into the classes that care more about MCAS. I don't know if you know that, because most schools do bio. So the science MCAS is gone for the next 3 years. The ELA and the math MCAS is still potentially happening, but they decided to get rid of the science and engineering one. So for us, it was just such a nice blessing. But they're still putting kids in a Bio 2 class, which was the MCAS specific biology class, which is odd. So we were like, well, we really want to reteach the entire bio framework again when they don't need it, or could we incorporate more fun things that the kids might feel motivated by? And if they get, you know, their daily classwork grade based off of the feedback form, and then maybe weekly, like, other grades based off of other stuff they turn in, we thought maybe this was a workaround. So we were thinking maybe in the springtime we would try it too. So somebody messaged about, is the MCAS for the state or the district? My understanding is for Massachusetts, the science and engineering MCAS is gone. They published that in, I think it was late May. It was late enough that we were dangling that in front of the kids as a way to keep them turning work in. We kept saying, we don't know. They're saying you have to take the math one in the fall, so you might have to take the science one in the fall. So you really should do our review work. But it was early enough that the last couple of weeks of school, they might have stopped doing things that weren't super fun. So I might have started doing interactive online field trips after that and other things that were just fun.
One of my fun, just having great science is like all the citizen science stuff, like Zooniverse. Like my favorite one to go to is the Counting Penguins project. You know, like I go do it with my like little nephews, and we like go and count the penguins in the picture. But you know, like citizen science, like you're actually contributing. They just launched one today. I got an email that they're asking for people to help discover outer solar system objects in pictures. But that's less project-based learning because other people are doing the data collection.
So I'm trying to scroll through the comments and see if there's anything missed.
Thank you for sharing those links, Chris.
Yeah, Liz, thank you too.
Chris.
Does anyone have any additional questions? Okay. Did anyone have any, I know again, a lot of users of Pear Deck or Nearpod and Edpuzzle, but did anyone have any questions about that?
Do you use Nearpod? I actually, so I don't use either of them often, and I feel like I need to this year, and I'm just kind of like stuck in this place where my school's not going to pay for it. I'm probably going to have to pay out of pocket. I'm willing to, but I don't know what path to go because Nearpod has like a whole collection of lessons already built, but I don't like how they, some of the simultaneous stuff. So what's your experience with it? I really need a recommendation here.
Has anyone played with Nearpod? Because I've only played with Pear Deck.
Okay.
Again, my school, my school pre-purchased it, so I went, well, they bought it, so this is what I'm going to use.
Yeah, I had played with Pear Deck too, and I really liked it.
I used Pear Deck a lot before we went to remote, and I actually didn't use it in the remote because I don't know, it was fine for in class showing anonymous answers.
Yeah.
But it definitely doesn't have any content. The content it does have is excellent. They have social emotional learning slides, you know, and there was like, is this filling your cup? What's filling your cup today? What's draining your cup? Yeah. And that's a really nice way of doing social emotional learning. So those were good. They have one little lab that's like, they have one set of slides for a lab. Yeah. And I did use that actually on remote, and they just filled in like observations, hypothesis. It was kind of like guided notes lab, but it didn't actually like present that well. So if the Nearpod, my group buys Nearpod and not Pear Deck. But if they have like lessons, you know, you do have to do all your own lessons. But it's very functional. If you have the premium, it has everything you'd want and things you never would imagine, and it's very awesome, but doesn't really have content.
Amanda, can you elaborate about Nearpod? So, you know, like that's the dangerous thing is I don't want to spend a lot of money on it and then find out I'm not going to use it.
I mean, the only thing I'll say is that our school purchased it because a lot of teachers were interested in it, and then I just found that it wasn't very easy to integrate into what we had already created. So it felt like a lot of clicking and a lot of labor for me to convert what we were already doing. And I was able to do a lot of the same things easier just bootstrapping it, really. Like I felt like it was more cumbersome and more work than just doing the same kind of thing on Google Slides and kind of just doing it our own way. I just didn't feel like it added much. It just made it more, to me, it made it more work for me personally.
Yeah.
But that's not everyone's experience. There are people who really liked it. I think I just, again, I'm repeating myself, but I just feel like it didn't feel like it added anything. And if you're paying for it yourself, I don't think I would pay for it myself. If it was something my school had paid for, maybe that would be helpful.
Right.
Yeah. Whereas I've had a lot of luck adding Pear Deck to my already existing slides, because you can create a draggable out of anything. So I've been doing that, and I have one I made for a class a couple of weeks ago for Properties That Matter, because I was taking an online chemistry remote learning class. So I converted like my first lecture that was already a slideshow into a better slideshow, basically. And it only took time because I was like, oh, my slides are ugly now. I need to make them prettier. And, so they were like I had these really fun backgrounds and stuff because I went to Slides Carnival and I got a fun background.
Anyone have any experience with ClassKick or GoFormative? That's the other route, which that's less slide based and more like interactive document based. And I didn't know whether, I'm literally like, I need something and I don't know what to do. Stuart's talking, but I can't hear him.
Oh, that's okay. Sorry about that, I was muted. I have experience with GoFormative. I find it's very good because one of the features that I like about it is that you can convert ordinary worksheets into interactive worksheets. Like I said, you have a PDF, you could embed multiple choice questions within it or fill-ins. And also, you can create individual student whiteboards. So I find it's a very good tool. And also you have the ability to embed it if you use Canvas, for example.
I went to the AACT webinar where no, it wasn't AACT. It was some other one where A.B. Roediger, she's like the chemistry guru for that. And she was talking about it, and she said one of the cool features is that you can catch cheating because GoFormative will tell you if a student copied and pasted into a text field.
That's awesome.
I didn't know.
Virtual classroom, Esther, I don't know anything about it. Do you want to talk about it?
Well, I just ended a workshop at my school, give some free workshops to all teachers run by our own staff. And this one, what it does is create one Google slide, and then you can put like emojis or objects on the slide, and then you can connect the slides to videos, short videos or worksheets or Google Forms or whatever. It's all in one place. So it was very creative. I have a sheet with all kinds of resources for it that I can share with everyone. It was a lot. It's kind of like the instructor said, I warned us at the beginning of the workshop that this was going to be very addictive. I mean, you can start embellishing your classroom and you gotta find a point to stop. I mean, it was interesting. I did one for laboratory safety. Rather than put slides with the rules written down, I had like objects connecting to the rules or, instruments connecting to their video, how to run them or, things like that. So I figured it was easier instead of moving slides around for the students just stay in one place and just go other places from there. Yeah, it was pretty cool. I thought it was helpful. I never tried that. I need to take myself less seriously these days to make my classes more engaging. That's for sure. So I'll share that. It's a whole sheet of resources that she shared with us that I asked that that I could put it on this website now for
Thank
the
you, Esther.
conference. Yeah.
I just want to say, Liz, thank you again so much. I got a lot out of your presentation, and I'm looking forward. It's a really great framework for building something that's more long-term, and it's definitely something that I think I'm going to be able to use this year. Definitely need some more long-term goals. I feel like the only way social emotionally that we can get the kids through this year is to kind of focus on your goals. Let's keep the big picture in mind.
Yeah.
I think if the Department of Ed ends up doing power standards again, it probably will come in handy for that reason. Like you could have the kids have a project where that just focuses on that standard maybe,
Mm-hmm.
But thank you guys. I'm sorry that it was presentation mode. I wasn't sure how to do this since we weren't in person, and we obviously, you know, limited in time too. So thank you.
Thank you, Liz. And am I right? Anybody can email you? That's okay.
Oh yes, absolutely. And I'll post the documents we made too in that shared drive. I only put the PowerPoint in advance, so not PowerPoint, Google presentation in advance. So I'll do that too in case anybody wants to borrow those docs or enhance them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Sure.
you.
Thank you.
So like I said earlier, there's a guided discussion that's starting here right now in about a minute. Best practices for hybrid learning classrooms. I'm a hybrid learning classroom, or at least until COVID numbers go up a month from now. And then the other discussion, which you might want to switch to, and we won't take offense, is developing instructional materials for remote learning. I'm going to throw that link here just in case anybody wants a direct link. That's the developing instructional materials for remote learning. So I guess that's your Pear Deck room. Frankly, I have no idea how hybrid learning is going to work. So, you know.
That's why I was sort of like buying into Pear Deck, because I was like, oh, maybe this is a way to interact with the kids in the classroom, but not touch them. So, because we can't do group work anymore. We can't do that whole brainstorm this, now get up and write on a board or move to this part because it's not allowed to leave their seats. So I thought maybe this is a workaround, but I won't know till we do it, I guess.
One of the most interesting things is that my school's never been one-on-one. We've been BYOD, and then they decided to go one-on-one. And then they told us, well, we can't buy any devices because they're so backed up at the distribution facilities. So you'll start the year and you're only going to get devices midway through October.
Oh, that's not good.
That's
Especially
crazy.
when the first 2 weeks with students is supposed to be training them on how to do stuff.
Yeah.
Anyone else starting so maybe I should do an official introduction here. Is there anybody new? Raise your hand if you're new. If you just joined us. Okay. Hi, Rachel. So this is guided discussion, best practices for hybrid learning classrooms. Does anyone have a problem with recording this? Because I can turn the recording off if we as a group say, no, this is a private conversation and we don't want this recorded. Like I'm completely fine with that. Are you guys okay then with it being recorded? So if anybody wants to listen in or find this later, that they can find some resources, and we'll post the chat. I want it all, just so you know, Zoom records private conversations, but my intention is before we post any transcripts, I'm taking all those out. So I'm going to go line for line and take out any private things just because we don't want private to be published. Okay, but just in case you didn't know, Zoom does record those things. All right, so so this is a guided discussion, but we were kind of discussing things before. So like I said, I'm going to be hybrid. How many people here are going to be hybrid?
Well, probably. Hasn't been announced.
So maybe we should start with what your model's going to be for when you go back, or like, is it, you know, AB group? Is it like, I don't know. Maybe we can go around and just introduce ourselves, what school you're from, and what your model is going to be in just like 30 seconds or so.
Why don't you call people out to do that? Because we're on different orders on our screen.
All right, I'll go the order on my screen. So Liz, can you start? Introduce yourself for Rachel's new.
I muted myself. So I'm Liz. My school is supposed to be going on a 25% model. So we have different group of kids coming in Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Wednesday, we're supposed to be shut down for cleaning. They're still negotiating with the union and it won't get finalized till the 20th. But that's the model we're going with. So we'll have our full student load, but split up over 4 days.
Great. Thanks, Liz. Amy, could you introduce yourself?
So nothing has been officially announced. My guess is we are going to go hybrid. It'll be Monday and Tuesday, one set of kids, Wednesday and Thursday, another set of kids, and then a half day every other week. So every other week the kids get 3 days in. That's my guess at this point.
Great.
And we're live streaming. So the idea is that we're going to just keep plowing forward, and the kids that are home are following along with what we're doing in the classroom.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, Esther.
We're going hybrid as well. A and B groups. We see the kids 2 days a week in person. 2 days a week they will remote, and on Wednesdays we're going to have a synchronized teaching. So they live stream that day, and I've done it. We did it last at the end of the year last year, in which synchronized meant you were live teaching through Google Meet. So they'll follow you along either in a whiteboard that our school has that connection, and or the way I did it, I had a camera recorder thing that I apply over my papers, and as I was working the problems and questions out along with them, question answer thing, and we had to take a screenshot of their participation. So because we're not allowed to record anything. So 2 days in, 1 day both, and 2 days out, and they have to, you know, there's going to be a grading going on. So I'm still not sure how that grading is going to be, but here we go. And the students who are on the ELL or IEP will have to attend 4 days a week. So that's just that. And they will have an option for busing. They have an option for all kinds of things. I mean, it's a lot of work that has been going on with this.
Great.
So we'll see.
Could you jump in?
I teach at a private school, and they're planning for every scenario possible. The diocese that we teach for is pushing for all of the schools to go in full tilt. But and every one of the private schools is doing it differently, because the private schools are not all one-to-one. Mine is, so we have more flexibility. So the administration is planning for a hybrid model. If that shows up, they're planning for a full model if that shows up. But we also have about 10% of our student population that is, due to medical reasons, cannot come in at all. And so we're going to have students that's going to be 100% remote no matter what model we go back in. So we have to account for that. I know my school has bought something called Stream Beam, so they can stream live what we're doing in class. And that's something the school has purchased for us because they didn't want us to actually record anything.
Right. Thanks, Karen. Angela?
Yes, my school, role is kind of changed. I think we're still doing the hybrid model where they come in 2 days a week, and on Wednesday we'll have deep cleaning, and then the other group. But on the days that group A is there, group B is supposed to have some other type of assignment. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, because something said I was muted. Okay. So they're supposed to have some other type of assignment on the days that they're off. Now, our governor just declared that there will be no in-person school until September the 28th instead of August the 26th. And so I'm not quite sure, we'll find out Thursday, how our district is going to do that. Are we going to still do the A-B model? I really don't know.
Linda, can you jump in?
Sure. Similar to I think what Karen had said, I'm at a religious private school. And so I'm in South Florida. And so all the counties around me are starting remotely because our cases are ridiculously high here. However, as a private school, they can choose to open if they want to, and they are leaning toward opening. They would like to open 5 days a week like normal. I sure hope they don't, because if they do, I may not be there. So remote is a possibility. They're going to tell us about 5 days before school starts what they decide. So I'm still waiting to hear within about the next week or so what we're doing. So I've kind of held off on too much preparation so as not put my efforts where I don't need them. But that's why I'm just trying to learn about everything, because trying to get ready for whatever scenario they throw at me.
Yeah, it seems like a running theme of none of us know what's going to happen. And it's crazy. You know, like you said, how much can we even prepare when we don't know? Mm-hmm. Stewart, could you introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, I'm Stuart Goldberg. If you can't tell by my accent, I'm from New York. Anyway, I work in a public school, and we're going with a similar model to Karen. It's an AB model. We're going to have students coming in Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. I'm assuming it's going to be remote learning, but the classroom is going to be streamed to the students who are at home. And one of my goals is to make sure that the students who are at home are interacting with the students in the classroom. So this summer I haven't had a day off. I've been taking course after course to figure out how to do that.
Chris, can you jump in?
Sure. I'm a new school teacher this year, so I start in a month. I'm in Worcester, Mass. So Worcester is currently planning to start off with in-person only for the most demanding students that need the most personal attention. And then everybody else will be remote for at least the first quarter. After the first quarter, the other students, they have will have the choice, because I'm also a parent in the Worcester school system, of whether your kid goes fully remote or goes to the hybrid model. So for Q2, it'll be a mix of some kids are fully remote, some kids are coming in for limited days, and then the other kids that were coming in or whatever schedule they were continue on that.
Cynthia, Cynthia, are you here? Nope. Okay. Erin?
I teach in a public school in Rhode Island. As far as the last I heard, the district I'm in would like to do a hybrid model, like most people are talking. Our Tuesday is Monday, and then Team A comes in Tuesday, Wednesday, and Team B comes in Thursday, Friday. As of an hour ago, I saw that our governor may be delaying the start of school. We have a tendency to follow what Massachusetts does, and I'm pretty sure Massachusetts delayed the start of school 10 days, if I'm correct. Overall, is that right? Did you guys do that?
I think
Chris, are you in Mass or?
We're having a little bit of microphone problems, or at least I am.
Yeah, so as of an hour ago, there was talk that they may delay the start of school. I don't know if that means. Okay.
Erin, I'm sorry, I only got about half of that. Well, could you type up what you were gonna say in just quick? And we'll go, Kristen?
Yeah, so I'm in Pennsylvania, and we are supposed to be doing a hybrid model, group A, group B, but we don't have like a day of everyone being hybrid or online. So it's every other day they're in the building. Whatever happens, happens. We're just hoping it balances out. The only main issue I have is instead of doing like streaming or like giving them something else, we're expected to be giving the people online and in person the same stuff, but it has to be asynchronous. So I have to make recordings of my lessons, but then I also have to teach it in person. And I have to, like if I do a lab in person, I also have to have a simulation for them online. So everything has to match, but it can't match at the same time.
That's close to what I've been told, but it's insane. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thomas? Nope. Rowena?
Hi, everyone. I work for a charter school here in Norwell, Mass. Our school sent out like a survey to faculty and parents as to what model that they want to vote to. The one that was voted the most was the 1 week on, 1 week off model. So AB scheduling as well. And then, but then we also have to prepare for those students who are opting for a full remote learning. So that's the third option. So, but that's not final yet. That's what I have right now.
And so I lost track of the list that rearranged a little bit. So I know I accidentally skipped a couple people. So if I accidentally skipped you. Could you chime in right now? April?
We are one group of students Monday, Tuesday. Wednesday closed for cleaning, and teachers do remote with everybody somehow. And then Thursday, Friday, another group of students. And luckily, we don't have to deal with the remote. People who choose remote, I think they're going to have different teachers for that. And we also don't have to do like Zooming, like live Zooming. They don't want us to do that. So I feel good about that.
Thomas? I can't hear you. Still can't hear you. Maybe you could type up in the chat a little introduction. Was there anybody else that we skipped?
Hi, Chris, you
Rachel?
didn't get me.
Sorry, Pam? Yeah.
Shall I go?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm here in New Hampshire. As you guys know, we have low numbers like Vermont and Maine, so we are planning to go back, everyone. The exception to that is that in our district, somewhere in the neighborhood of 15% of families are electing to keep their kids home for fully remote from the beginning. We have 3 other plans all set up. So one of them we go to the same schedule we'll be using for full time, which is 2 days on Monday, Tuesday in. Wednesday is teachers are available remotely for consultation and specialty work while the school is clean. Thursday and Friday, we're back in the classroom, all kids. If we start to have cases, then they flip to a model where some kids come in for Monday and Tuesday, some kids come in for Thursday and Friday, and then beyond that, we go to only the super high needs kids in, and or if the governor says we're closed, we're closed. So, and we are supposed to be doing a hybrid model where we are doing the exact same thing for remote and for in class at the same time, not asynchronous, synchronously at the same time. And we're not supposed to record kids' faces. So you can either put your computer in the back of the room or right in front of you, and we're not supposed to walk around. So I haven't quite figured out how it's going to work.
Right. Rachel, could you jump in?
Sure. I'm also in Rhode Island, so we're waiting for the governor to make a decision, probably, I guess, at the end of this week, early next week. Hypothetically, it will be hybrid with groups coming in on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. Monday would be all synchronous. When the groups are in, the kids who are at home would be joining our class online. So again, totally a mess. Don't know what we're going to do with that.
So right now, did everyone go first of all? Okay, so the general overall theme that I saw is that we have differences in the room. Everybody's kind of doesn't know what's going on, which is the different levels of not knowing what's going on is one thing. Things could change is another thing. I saw that there's big differences among us about whether things are synchronous or asynchronous, what kind of schedule we're teaching, whether we're teaching the same things to the kids or not. So this might actually be a good opportunity to go and do breakout rooms. So the way that we can do the breakout rooms to kind of like make sure that we're all kind of going to be able to be on the same page and still help each other is, so what's our session again? Best practices for hybrid learning environments. Yeah, that's it. So there, I'm going to go and paste into chat right now a link to our guided discussion section. Oh, Thomas, yeah, Thomas teaches at a small private school, face-to-face until Thanksgiving, maybe, yeah, hopefully. So I just posted again, a link to the breakout document. Could all of you just open that really quick? And this is going to be our notes document. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do breakout rooms here. And why don't we call, I'm actually interested in a little feedback here about which room should be which. So I'm thinking it might be most useful to break us up into those who have to teach the same things to the kids who are in class versus the kids who are at home. And by the way, I'm in that group, versus people who are, asynchronous much more often. but then are also doing things, so that you get to teach two different kinds of activities. All right, so let's just kind of see a rough breakdown by raising hands. Who has to teach the exact same thing to all their kids all their time, whether they're at class or at home? Okay, okay. And who's in the other category that it's much more asynchronous?
I don't know.
Yeah. All right, so, all right, maybe that's not a good breakout. So, because it didn't look like a very even split there. Does anyone have any other ideas for breaking us up? Because otherwise I could just break us up randomly. Randomly? Are we saying randomly? Okay. So we're going to do an automatic breakup. We have 19 participants. I'm going to put us into 4 rooms. That seems about right.
4.
And what we're going to do is, it's 2:34 right now. So we did introductions for about 15 minutes. And what we're going to do is we're going to go into our breakout rooms until, let's call it 3 o'clock, and pretty much throw strategies at the wall, like what might work, what might not work. Designate one person to type up your the notes from your session. I just need to add a new page here so that we can have a breakout room for. And then we'll come back and we'll kind of highlight what we think is your best few strategies. Sound good until 3? Okay, here we go. Create rooms. All rooms. Have fun. So remember, designate one person.
You're muted, Chris.
Thank you, thank you. All right, so we were just gonna report out what we said, maybe like hit a couple highlights. So anybody from breakout room 1 wanna like give us a couple highlights? I mean, everybody has the document, or I'll share the link again to the document here in the chat. Where's the chat? Chat disappeared. But somebody from breakout room 1, anybody? Bueller?
I took notes, so I can read through them, I guess.
Okay, yeah, just any highlights from your
All right,
breakout
let me
room.
go back to them. My memory is terrible. So we talked about the fact that we could technically approach the synchronous learning by actually being asynchronous, because all of us have different groups of kids in front of us, different days of the week. So we thought that could be an approach, and that PBLs could come in there. For labs, we talked about, one teacher was thinking about trying to do labs on a really small scale in the classroom, so each kid has their own setup and doesn't have to move. Other people might be doing them at home. I know I was told I should be doing them at home if I do them. We're trying to talk about the pros and cons of trying to record ourselves, because if we're recording the live classroom feed, you can't actually see the students legally. So that was an issue. We talked about PBLs a little bit, that it might be helpful in that hybrid approach, because you can have kids working on that while at home, and then the kids who are live in your classroom can be working on other things. We talked about ways to get kids to interact more by calling them at home, but that was so time intensive, or using SEL type questions to get them to interact online, using discussion boards like Padlet and Jamboard. How would we approach still teaching the NGSS? And we had talked about, using the interactive tools would be helpful, but also that it probably will end up being more superficial, because we probably won't be able to teach quite as much. And then we talked about testing, and like, do we test in school? Do we test at home? If we're testing at home, what kind of software could we use to assist with not cheating and also grading? I'm trying to think, did I miss anything? Anyone in my group here?
No, I think you did a great job, Elizabeth.
Yeah, that's great. I want to point out, so some of the things you said were what we said in our group. So like, just under broad themes, figuring out how to do labs, like what kind of learning is going to happen in your classroom. And I think it's a really cool idea, like thinking about synchronous learning asynchronously. That's really cool. Getting kids to interact is a really important thing too, figuring out how to do that, and figuring out how to do assessments. So group 2, like, do you have anything that like goes under those kind of like guidelines? So labs, like learning activities, getting kids to interact, tests, and quizzes.
I seem to be the only one unmuted, so I'll go. One of the things related to labs was we talked about doing breakout rooms a lot to keep kids interacting, and so they can't just hide away from the computer, because they at least have to answer to their peers. Some of the discussion on doing labs where kids are only in 1 day a week and you have to do the same lab 3 times or something was what, they could do it as their little Zoom with a group. So if there's one person doing the hands-on stuff and 2 or 3 watching, and then you could actually assign roles to the people who are watching. One could be making sure procedures are followed, one could be looking at safety, and then they would kind of rotate on their days the different aspects. And even watching the same lab being done twice from a different perspective might help them learn it even more.
Nice. Did you talk about any like social emotional stuff, or is that in kind of like assigning them in groups is kind of like the strategy for that?
Anyone have an answer on that one?
No, but I could bring in what I heard in the other session, which is when you guys were all in this session. She was doing like all about me Kahoots. And then, so she did one to start, and then she was gonna have each kid in the class do one and sort of open or close the class with that through the first month. And I thought that was a great idea, just to try to build a culture and get people to know each other in the classroom.
Have kids make Kahoots or do Kahoots?
No, no, so she made one about herself and then delivered that to us, but to the kids, and then each kid has to make one about themselves, and you do it at the end of 2 or 3 Kahoots on each kid with that kid, so that you would get to know them. It's kind of an interesting whether it's Kahoot or quizzes, whatever you feel like is comfortable. And I just thought it was a nice way to sort of set the culture and do something fun. Because the kids love the Kahoots.
I thought of an idea also that I haven't done, but I'm a theory guy, is that the students could make a video. You could give the students, let's say, 3 or 4 questions that have to do with something about the student, and then the students can make a video, and then they can post it. And then the next day, you can have an activity of, let's say, student build. That what you do as a teacher is you take a certain interesting thing about each of the students, and then the students have to figure out who it is. So this way, the students, you're establishing a community in the classroom by doing something like that.
That sounds good. Somebody from room 3 want to offer up maybe some highlights? So again, kind of like social emotional learning, lab activities that you would, learning activities, labs, and assessment. So what we talked about, I was in room 3. Kristen?
I came in late, but I can summarize what it seems like. We did a lot of discussion about assessments and about how to mitigate collaborative assessments and try to get kids to not to just get help from each other and to cheat on assessments. And so there was a lot of discussion about ways, different formats to use, such as Canvas, Khan Academy, open-ended questions, questions with multiple possible answers, focusing on understanding and explanation, even using Flipgrid for kids to explain things as an assessment. Somebody else chime in with what else happened.
I'll just say that at the beginning, there was a whole thing about trying to pair up kids who are in the session A, like group A, with kids that are in group B. So like, you know, if there's a kid that's outside the class, have them paired up with a kid who's inside the class and get to know them. And, you know, like even like just starting team building activities at the beginning of the year, get to know each other so that you build a cohesive class of everyone instead of just the kids who are in the room with you at the time. So I thought that was cool. And Sharon pointed out that Flipgrid is also useful for social emotional learning, that you can have kids just make a Flipgrid of them talking to the teacher directly, and then you can keep it private. And I thought that was a really neat idea, just kind of social emotional, like reporting in how you're doing. Group 4. Anything, so social emotional, so breakout room 4, we've got social emotional, in-class activities, assessment, any of that.
We talked about everything in group 4, and we started kind of by just saying what worked from the spring and what we liked the best from the spring, because it was really trial by fire, you know, doing it as well. We did talk about the assessments, and I thought of this. My math teacher actually did his exams on Zoom. So what he did was he opened a Zoom file, he would see everyone's picture, you know, and he scrolled through as they're taking the test for the full 45 minutes, and he would post his exam in front of the Zoom camera. And, you know, and then they'll go, oh, can you show me question 4 yet? And he'd just move it up and down like that for them. And they had to take a picture of their tests and email it to them before they could log off. So that's how he did his, on all of his math exams, that's how he did all of them. So he tried to schedule them for the last period of the day, because if it took a little longer, you're not trying to get to the next class. or he would try to do it during the lunch period because they had more time to submit in their work. But they could not log off of their computer until after they had emailed him their exam, and that's how he did it.
Thanks, Karen. I want to point out, Liz said in the chat, I was at a workshop where they wanted the kids to make a Bitmoji and submit a photo of themselves, and the teacher turned into a matching game for the kids to match the Bitmoji to the pic. That's neat too. So hopefully we got some strategies. I think we're all kind of sharing the fact that we're all very confused about what's going to happen. And we don't know what's going to happen, but I actually have to go to the next meeting. So I'm so sorry I have to leave you all now. And that means that you're all going to get kicked out, unfortunately. Sorry. But I hope to see you later in the conference and you got something out of it. So take care.
Thank you.